Again, hello everyone. This session we will be dealing with the zeros of polynomial functions, and we will have the rational zero theorem for this session. So it states that represent a polynomial equation of degree n, this polynomial function, if a rational number p over q, where p and q have no common factors, is a root of the equation, then p is a factor of the constant term, meaning this term, and q is the factor of the leading coefficient, this one. So to further explain that, let's have an example. Now, example number 1. Let us list all possible roots of, you have there 6x cubed plus 11x squared minus 3x minus 2. So our p here, the numerator, diri na kuhaon sa ato ang factor sa constant term. Now, this is my question section, Ruby. What are factors of 2? What are 1 and 2? 1 and 2. So 1 is a factor of 2, 2 is a factor of 2. What about 6? 6 here is the leading coefficient. That's your q. That's your q there. And q is a factor of the leading coefficient. Now, what are factors of 6? 1, 2, 3, ug 6. Correct. 1, 2, 3, and 6. So, let's proceed. Determine the rational roots. First, determine p. We already know what are the values of p, section Ruby. What are the values of p? Factors of the constant term. What are the factors of the constant term? We have written that already there. 1 and 2. And it is possible to have positive 1 and negative 1. Same thing with the number 2. It's possible to have positive 2 and negative 2. That is your p value. What about the value of q? Okay, it's also possible to have positive and negative 1, positive and negative 2, positive and negative 3, positive and negative 6. Now, how do you get now the possible root? It's so easy. You start first with the first values of p. Okay? Start with the first values of p. Now, what is 1 divided by 1? What's 1 over 1? 1. Let's write that down. Next, still the first value of p, but this time, i-over na to sa second value. What's 1 over 2? It's 1/2. Next, the number 1 again, kining p. I-over na to ni 3. So we have 1 over 3. Next is 1 again. Then you pair it with the number 6. 1 over 6. Then you go to number 2 now. You'll have number 2 as your numerator. So 2 over 1 is what? That's simply 2. 2 over 2, it's 1. You have 1 already there. Do not write 1 anymore, because 2 over 2 is 1. Sunod, 2 over 3. So 2/3. And we have 2 over 6. Now, reduce 2 over 6. That is 1/3. And you have 1/3 already. Do you get how we were able to get these values here? Were you able to get the concept on how to get these values? Okay, let's continue. So, the concept there is simply start with this first factor of p. This is the first numerator. Divide that by each value of q. So 1 over 1, 1 over 2, 1 over 3, 1 over 6. Then after which, go to the next value of p. That's 2. 2 over 1, 2 over 2, 2 over 3, 2 over 6. Okay? Now, we will now list the possible rational roots. And we are going to have the concept that we had a while ago, P over Q. And let's look at this one. We have 1, positive, negative 1 to be specific. It's here. Then we have 2. It's also here. 1/2. It's also present. 1/3 is also here. 1 over 6 is present. And 2 over 3 is present. So, sir, what do you mean by this? These are the possible numbers that you will use in the synthetic division. So, you are gonna be using positive, negative 1, positive, negative 2. I do not recommend the fractions there when you do synthetic. I recommend positive, negative 1, positive, negative 2 first. If you cannot do with those numbers, then you go to the fractions now. Is that clear, section Ruby? So again, these values are the values that you will use in the synthetic division. So we will continue on this later. I'm gonna have another example. Let us list all the possible rational zeros of x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6. Now, this is easier. Why? What is the value of p? What are possible values of p? Asa gikan si p? Constant term. Asa mang constant term na to, ana? Sa 6. O what are factors of 6? Okay, there you have it. Positive 1, positive negative 1, positive negative 2, positive negative 3, positive negative 6. These are the factors of the constant term. Now, what are possible values of Q? 1. Kay ang number sa atong leading coefficient is 1. Positive, negative 1. Now, this is now the shortcut. In case that the leading coefficient is 1, right away, the factors of the constant term, meaning these factors, these are the possible rational roots. Because 1 over 1 is 1, 2 over 1 is 2, 3 over 1 is 3, 6 over 1 is 6. So these are the numbers that you will use in the synthetic division. Is that clear, section Ruby? Okay, now let's proceed. So take note, the possible roots are 1, positive negative 1, positive negative 2, positive negative 3, positive negative 6. Now, let us now get the roots. Which among these is really the root of this function? Which number do you want to start? Do you want to start with positive 1 or negative 1? I always recommend the smallest number. Which do you want? You want to positive 1. Okay. What are the coefficients here? What am I gonna write here? We have, I will be using synthetic now. 1. Next. 2. Next. Negative 5. Next. Negative 6. Okay, let's do synthetic and let's place 1 over here. Bring down 1. 1 times 1 is 1. You combine, that's 3. You already know this. 1 times 3 is 3. This is how much? This is negative 2. And this is how much? Negative 2, and it's negative 8. Now, this is my question. Is this a factor? Is this a factor? This one. No. So I will not use this because this is a 0. It's not a 0. So I'm gonna mark X there because it's not a 0. Let's make use of negative 1 because we're done with positive 1. Let's go to negative 1 now. So the same process, 1, 2, negative 5, negative 6. Then I'm gonna use negative 1 this time. Okay, bring down 1. Multiply, negative 1. Combine 1, multiply, that's negative 1. You combine negative 6, multiply positive 6, 0. So we now have 1 root or 0. So our roots, let's write this down. Roots or zeros. Okay. What our first possible root? What our first root? Negative 1 because it's correct. So, naka-0 man taan na. Negative 1. Now, how do you get the other roots? What are you going to do with 1, 1, and negative 6? You transform this into an, what? A trinomial, right? How do you write 1, 1, negative 6 as a trinomial? X squared, good. Plus X minus 6 is correct. Now, what are you going to do with this? Is this factorable? Yes. So what are the factors here? X plus what and X plus what? What are factors of 6 when subtracted? It's 1. 3 and 2. Factors of 6 when subtracted, it's 1, 3, and 2. O asay i-positive na to, anak. Positive 3, correct, and negative 2. Now, how do you get the zeros? Diba you take the opposite of the sign? What's the opposite of positive 3? Negative 3 is 1, 0. Let's write it here. What's the opposite of this? Positive 2, and it is also another 0 there. So these are now the zeros. Okay? And how do you write the factors, by the way, section Ruby? Opposite aning positive 1, negative 1. X plus 1. Next. Opposite sa, correct. Opposite sa negative 3 is X plus 3. Next. Opposite sa positive 2 is negative 2. And these are your factors. Any questions about our first example on finding the roots of a polynomial function? Here's my question now, section Ruby. How many roots do we have in our answer? 3. And what is the degree of your given polynomial function? 3. So, expect that you will have at most ang pinakadako nga number of roots is 3. But you can have a root nga duha lang or usa lang. Why? Because remember the concept of multiplicity? Because you can apply that over here, and I'm gonna give an example on that later on. Okay? Now let's continue. This one. So, first thing, you use synthetic division to test and find the roots or the factors. The last number must be a 0 to show that the root is a factor, just like what we did a while ago. Okay? So let's go back here. We have 6x cubed plus 11x squared minus 3x minus 2 equals to 0. We had this one a while ago. This was my first example. And the possible roots are these. Okay? So take note, these are the possible roots of this polynomial function. Now, what do you want? Do you want to start with positive 1 or negative 1? Or positive 2 or negative 2? Which do you want? Section Ruby? Let's start with negative 1. Okay, let's show the solution now. We have 6, we have 11, we have negative 3, and we have negative 2. I'm gonna start with negative 1. Okay, let's begin with negative 1. Bring down 6. Multiply, that's negative 6. This is 5. This is negative 5. This is how much? This is 8. Negative. Positive 8. It's not 0. So, cannot be ang negative 1. You want to try positive 1? Let's try positive 1. So, we have positive 1, 6, 11, negative 3, negative 2. And we have positive 1. Oh, bring down 6, multiply 1 and 6, that's 6. This is 17. Oh, multiply them. How much is this? That's 17. Then you combine them. This is 14. You have 14 there. It's still not 0. So, dili pwede ang positive 1 o negative 1. So, let's go to, which do you want? Do you want to have negative 2 or positive 2? Yes. Asa may ganahan ninyo? Negative 1 or negative 2, positive 2? You want to have positive 2. Okay, let's show the solution for positive 2. So, we have 6, we have 11, we have negative 3, and we have negative 2. And we have positive 2. Bring down 6. This is 12. Lani, dako na kayo ni, din ni pwede. O, pila ni siya. Pila ni? 23. So, dili, anitas negative. Mag-negative ko awa. Kung i-times na ako, I'm gonna have negative 12. And I'm gonna have negative 1. And this one is positive 2. This is negative 1. This is positive 2. It's a 0. So, therefore, this is a root. Ang negative 2. So, take note. We tried positive 1. We have tried positive 2 sad. And you are left with how many sa inyong synthetic? 1, 2, 3. So, this time, let's do factoring. Oh, there you go. I'm just showing you not a 0. If I'm gonna try that, that's a 0. Okay? Now, what are you gonna do with this, Kini? Trinomial. Oh, what's your trinomial now? (6x squared minus x minus 1. Now, if I'm gonna do factoring here, remember the process I told you? Katong 6x over 6. Do you still remember this process? Plus, minus. Diba you multiply 6 and 1? What is the product of 6 and 1? That's 6. What are factors of 6? When subtracted, it's 1. 3 times 2. So, I'm gonna have positive. Which should be negative? Which should be negative? Ang 3. Positive ang 2. And, diba, we will have factoring next. What's common between 6 and 2? 2. Oh, you factor that, you're left with x plus 1. What's common between 6 and 3? 3. You factor 3. You are left with 2x minus 1 all over 6. Now, what is 2 times 3? It's 6. You can cancel that out. So, the factors now are simply, diba, you already have x plus 2 a while ago. Yeah, we have these factors na sad. So, take note, the factors are x plus 2, the one thing, the root, di ba, nag-negative 2 ganihata, kini? We have negative 2 here. And writing this as a factor, this is written as x plus 2. This is already one of the factors. That's why we have x plus 2 here. And we have the other factors, 2x minus 1, and 3x plus 1. So let us now get the roots. What is our first root based on x plus 2? Negative 2. So take note, naanatay root nga negative 2. What about 2x minus 1? 1/2. How did you get 1/2? Diba ang buhaton ani is equate this 2x minus 1, equate that to 0. And then you transpose this to the other side. That becomes positive 1. Divide both sides by 2. Maunang your classmate was able to get 1/2 for that. What about 3x minus or 3x plus 1? Negative 1/3. It's so simple. The concept here is so simple. Opposite sa negative 1 is 1 over 2. Opposite sa positive 1 is negative 1 over 3. And these are your roots now. There you go. Those are your roots. Okay? Next, the process. Don't forget. Step 1. Find your P's and Q's and list all possible roots. Step 2. Number of roots or zeros is based on the highest degree. Pero dili na siya necessary if you have a degree 3, mag-expect kag tulo ka buk lahi-lahi nga number. Din na, it's not. Okay? I will have an example on that later on. Next is use synthetic division for your first root. If it does not work, you use math papa. Okay? Let's use technology. Let's use technology. Anyway, the important thing here is you know how to go about solving the roots. Step 3. After finding a root, factor the rest on your own. If not factorable, use the quadratic formula. Mauna na akong gamiton sa akong next examples. And there you go. Step number 4. Solve the roots. Let's have this one. X cubed plus 7x squared plus 11x minus 3. What are possible values of q? What are the possible rational roots here? 3 and 1 only. So we can have positive 1, positive negative 1, pwede put positive negative 3. So you have it there. Oh, there you have it. These are the possible roots. So asa may ganahan ninyo nga gamiton mi? You want to start with positive 1 or negative 1? What do you want to have? You want to start with negative 1. Okay, let's try negative 1. So we have here 1, 7, 11, and negative 3. And let's try negative 1. We have 1, then we have negative 1. We have 6, negative 6. This is how much? This is 5. And you have negative 5. It's negative 8. It's not. I cannot use negative 1. No, which do you want to use now? Positive 1. If I'm going to use positive 1, okay, let's try positive 1. 1, 7, 11, negative 3. So we have 1, 1, 8. We have 8, 19, 19. It's not still. Dili pwede gihapon ang positive 1. Let's use negative 3. Let's use negative 3. One of your classmates said, sir, negative 3. 1, 7, 11, and negative 3. Okay. So we have 1, and then we have negative 3. This is 4. This is negative 12. This is negative 1. This is 3. And that's 0. And this is a root. This is already a 0. Now, how do you write 1, 4, and negative 1 as an expression? This is now x. Correct. 4x minus 1. That's x squared plus 4x minus 1. This is now my question section. Ruby, Can you factor this out? Can you factor 1 such that when you subtract the factors, it's 4? Dili. So meaning, this is not factorable. I will be using the not the calculator. I will be using the quadratic formula now. So take note ha. Naatay x squared plus 4x minus 1. Oh, wait sa. That's not it. So let's compute first. I'm gonna have... Wait. So take note. Naanatay. So tinahibilin. X squared plus 4x minus 1, right? Is this it? Am I correct, Section Ruby? 4x squared plus 4x minus 1. That's right. So going back to my board. So what's the value of a here? By the way, what's the quadratic formula? Can you still remember the quadratic formula? Who can give me the quadratic formula? X is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, now what is the value of a? Sir, it's 1. This is a. What's the value of b? Sir, it's positive 4. What's the value of c? It's negative 1. Oh, substitute everything in your quadratic formula. So this becomes, you tell me what to write here. This is now negative 4. Okay, plus minus, this is 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 1 all over 2 times 1. Okay, let's simplify everything first. Let's do what's inside the radical sign. So we have 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 1. Plus 4 all over 2. Now, what are you going to do next? This becomes 4 plus minus 20 over 2. Now, my question is this. The square root of 20 can be simplified, right? It can be simplified. What are factors of 20 such that one factor is a perfect square? 4 times 5. So I'll be using 4 times 5. And what is the square root of 4? Oh, you write 2 outside, and what remains inside is the square root of 5. So that's the thing that I'll be writing now. Let's move this down. So I'm gonna have negative 4 plus minus 2 square root of 5 all over 2. Now, diba, we can divide 4 by 2 and divide 2 by 2. Let's divide each number by 2. Negative 4 divided by 2 is how much? That's negative 2 plus minus 2 divided by 2. That's 1. So no need to write the number 1, right? So these are our roots. Break this down. You have negative 2 plus the square root of 5. The other root is... Very good. There you go. And these are your roots in our presentation. Look at our... Take note how we already have negative 3 there. And the answer, there you go. Now, naadere si negative 2 minus square root of 5 Yeah, negative 2 plus square root of 5. That is now our solution set. Those are your zeros. Questions about this example section, Ruby? Section Ruby, is everything okay? Okay. I'm hoping na you understand this. Okay. Now, next one. Let's try this. Oh, what are possible factors? Unsa may mga factors nga akong gamiton for 2? 1 and 2. Oh, what do you want to use first? Negative 1 or positive 1? Negative 1. Sige, negative 1. So what am I gonna write here? So you tell me what are the coefficients there. You have 1, 1, 0. Because x is missing, and negative 2. Do not forget the missing terms. Okay, let's bring down 1. This is negative 1. This is 0. And this is 0. Am I correct? I'm right, di ba? 0, 0. It's negative 2. So I cannot use negative 1. You want to use positive 1. Let's use positive 1. 1, 1, 0, and negative 2. So we have 1. 1 times 1. That's 1. That's 2. That's 2. That's 2. It's okay. There you go. We have a 0 now. So 1 is a 0. Okay? Now, how do you write this as an expression? X squared plus 2x plus 2. Now, this is my question. Is 2 factorable na i-add nimo it's the middle term 2? Can you factor 2 such that the sum of the factors of 2 when added, it's the middle term, it's 2? No, you cannot. So, unsa may gamiton nako ani? Quadratic formula again. So, I will substitute everything diretso ha. Do you want me to write the quadratic formula sa ato ang board or no? I will substitute everything. Ha? Isuwat pa na kong quadratic formula, class? No need. Okay, this is the value of A, B, and C. So you have negative B, negative 2, plus minus the square root of B squared. What's B? It's 2. 2 squared minus what? 4, 1, 2. Okay. All over 2 times 1. Okay, let's simplify everything. This is now negative 2 plus minus the square root of how much? 4 minus 8 all over 2, right? And this becomes negative 2 plus minus, what's 4 minus 8? Negative 4 all over 2. Now, my question here, section Ruby. What is the square root of negative 4? Very good. Naka-remember pa sa 2i. Very good. So take note, if there is a negative number or a negative sign inside the radical sign, expect that there is an I there, meaning it's imaginary. All over 2. Now, we can divide man. So, what is negative 2 divided by 2? It's negative 1. Plus minus 2 divided by 2, that's 1. Awang nahibili na lang din ha, si I. So, therefore, our roots are, so take note, negative 1 plus I, negative 1 minus I. So, our roots are, no, we have 1, we have negative 1 plus I, we have 1 minus I. Questions about this example section, Ruby? Section Ruby, is this clear? Hilom lagi mo ron, Section Ruby. Are you okay? Okay, that's good. Okay, let's have more examples. Let's have this one. Let's try. So, we have here, what do you want? You want to start with positive 1 or negative 1? Negative 1. Okay, let's start with negative 1. So we have 1, 2, negative 1, and negative 2. Let's have, bring down 1, multiply, that's negative 1, that's 1, this is negative 1, this is negative 2, this is positive 2, that's a 0, that's correct. And you will be writing this as what? How do you write 1, 1, and negative 2? This is now x squared plus x minus 2. Wali x. Is this factorable? Factors ang 2 when subtracted, it's 1. Yes, so meaning I will do factoring. I will not use quadratic. I will not waste my time on the quadratic formula. I will make it easy. I'm gonna use the factoring method. So what are factors of 2 when subtracted? It's 1. Which should be positive? 2. Okay. So what are your roots here? Negative 2 and positive 1. So what are the roots now? What are your roots? Negative 1. Next. Negative 2. Positive 1. And what are the factors? Let's start with this. X plus 1. Next. X plus 2. Just the opposite sign. Next. X minus 1. And those are your factors. Okay? Next example. This one. I'm gonna give you a lot of examples para klaro jud kay ni siya. Next. What number do you want to start with? Negative 1. La, si sir, negative 1 always. 1, 4, negative 3, negative 6. So we have, bring down 1, negative 1. This is 3. This is how much? Negative 3. This is negative 6. 6. Hala. Okay. Correct. Check. Next. What are you going to do with this? This is x squared plus 3x. Now, this is now my question. Is this factorable? No. So, we don't have any option but to use the quadratic formula. So, let's substitute everything. Negative b. What's the value of b? 3 plus minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1. This is your a, this is your b, this is your c. Times negative 6. All over 2 times 1. So we now have negative 3 plus minus 9 plus 24. All over 2. Now what is 9 plus 24? What is 9 plus 24? 33. All over 2. So what are your roots here? Let's start with our synthetic atong result. Negative 1. What are the other roots? We have kini. Negative 3 plus the square root of 33 over 2. The other root is the square root of 33 over 2. And those are your roots there. Okay? Let's have another example. This one. Hala, 5. Pero awas siya section Ruby. We only have positive 1. So I will be using only positive 1 and negative 1 for this. So let's begin. What do you want to start with? Is it positive 1 or negative 1? Positive 1. Okay, we now have 1. We have 1 for this. Then negative 2. Negative 2. We have 1 and 1. Let's do synthetic now. So we have 1. Multiply. This is 2. Multiply. This is 0. Multiply 0. Negative 2. And this is negative 2. Negative 1, multiply, that's negative 1, that's a 0. So, check na ni akong usa ka negative 1. Sunod, mag-expression na ba ko section Ruby? Diba, I am gonna use the expression thing katong x squared when you are left with 1, 2, 3, and followed by the zeros. But take note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and followed by the 0. Continue doing synthetic division. So let's try negative 1 this time. Do not include 0 anymore. You're gonna stop with negative 1 only. Is that clear? Okay, so I'm gonna have, bring down 1, and we have negative 1. This is 1. This is negative 1. Negative 1. This is positive 1. This is negative 1. Positive 1. It's a 0 again. So this is okay. Now, this is my question section, Ruby. We are done with positive 1 and negative 1. Nya, wala pa ta kay mag-synthetic pamantaani. We will do synthetic again. Why? 1, 2, 3, 4. I need to have 1, 2, 3 followed by the 0. So we will do synthetic further. So it's either you go back to positive 1 or negative 1. Because remember, there is what you call multiplicity. Or what do you want? Do you want to go back with positive 1 or you want to have negative 1? Positive 1 ta, go. So we have positive 1. 1, multiply, that's 1. This is 2. Multiply, this is 1. That's 1. It's a 0 again. So therefore, this is a root. Now, let's have the expression now. How do you write this as an expression? Plus. Okay, is this factorable? Yes. What are factors here? X plus 1. What is 1 and 1? Because 1 times 1 is 1. And when you add the two factors, you're gonna get the middle term 2. Right? So what are the factors here? We have... What are the roots? I mean, what are the roots? Okay, negative 1. And this one is... also negative 1. Now, look at our roots section, Ruby. Naatay pila ka negative 1? Tulo. So, meaning, I will have negative 1. Unsay isunod na ako diri section, Ruby. What's the word? Very good. I will use multiplicity. Multiplicity. How many times did negative 1 repeat? Oh, there you go. Negative 1, multiplicity 3. What about positive 1? Very good. Multiplicity 2 because positive 1 repeated twice. Now, how do you write your roots? Let's start with negative 1. This is now x plus 1. And what's the exponent? There you go. Diba? The multiplicity is the exponent. And how do you write positive 1? This is now x minus 1 squared. There you have it. So, diri magamit atong multiplicity concept. I will look at this one. When you add 3 and 2, how much is that? 5. It's our degree. Right? And take note, awa atong solution. Sir, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 roots dira, sir. Pero, nagbalik-balik lang ang negative 1 and positive 1. That's why I have indicated here multiplicity 3 and multiplicity 2. Now, take note, section Ruby, some books, wala gisuwat ang multiplicity. It's only negative 1 and positive 1. Ayaw mo kalibog, ana, it's still okay. I am just emphasizing that negative 1 is repeated 3 times. And 1, multiplicity 2. Is that clear, section Ruby? Is everything clear? Okay, everything is clear. Next. What about this? Is this my... yeah, this is my last example. Murag, you're bored already. Bored in the house. Okay. What number do you want to start with? Negative 1. So we have 1, 1, negative 1, and negative 10. So we have 1 multiplied negative 1. That's 0. We have 0, negative 1. That's 1. That's negative 9. Cannot be. I would like to request some of you, please, can you do synthetic there? Then you tell me if you were able to come up with 0 and you tell me the number. But I'm gonna do it over here. Now, while doing positive 1, I'm gonna do positive 1. And you do 2, 5, positive 2, negative 2, positive 5, negative 5. Well, I'm doing positive 1, okay? Who's doing positive 2? Were you able to have positive 2? Is it a 0? It's a 0. Okay, there you go. Positive 2 is a 0. Now, let's write this as an expression. X squared plus 3x plus 5. Is this factorable? Dili siya factorable. It's because there exists no factors of 5 when added. It's 3. So I'm gonna be using the quadratic formula. Okay, I'm gonna be writing negative 3 plus minus. This is 3 squared. I'm gonna make this fast because you already know this. 4 times 1 times 5 all over 2 times 1. And we will have negative 3 plus minus. This is 3 squared is 9. Minus 20 all over 2. And you have negative 3 plus minus negative 11 all over 2. And what happens here? Namatay negative 11. How do you write that? Negative 3 plus minus the square root of 11. Ipalayo si I sa radical symbol. Dapat ka ng I, wala na siya masulod sa radical symbol, okay? All over 2. So what are your roots now? Let's write the roots. We are starting with katong synthetic. We have 2. What are the other roots? Katong imaginary roots nato. We have negative 3 plus the square root of 11i over 2, and also negative 3 minus, sorry, this is minus. I'm gonna erase this first. Okay, minus the square root of 11i over 2. There you go. Now, section Ruby. I mentioned a while ago the word conjugate. The conjugate. Some people pronounce it conjugate. Some people pronounce it as conjugate. Now, what do you mean by conjugate or conjugate? It's simply, tanawan ninyo ang inyuhang I. If I'm gonna have 2 plus minus I, diba you can write this as 2 plus I and also 2 minus I, right? Diba you can write it this manner? So this is what you call conjugate. The same, the other one is plus, the other one is minus. Take note of that concept. That's what you call a conjugate.